The Kent and Dollar Farm Massacres, Seeds of Ethnic Violence, 1984. The road into Manal Aru in the early 1980s carried more than dust and heat. It carried the weight of a country drifting toward a precipice, one where land, identity, and fear were becoming weapons sharper than any rifle. In this contested frontier between the northern and eastern provinces, the Sri Lankan state had begun to redraw the map not with ink, but with people. Wali Oya, a landscape rewritten. Wali Oya, known to Tamils for generations as Manal Aru, was a region of quiet farmland, river-fed fields, and Tamil families who had tilled the soil for decades. The Kent and Dollar farms, leased in 1965 and later donated by a Tamil landowner to shelter Indian Tamil refugees, stood as symbols of refuge and resilience. But by 1984, the winds had shifted. The state, driven by a strategic vision to secure the borderlands, forcibly took over the farms. Tamil families were evicted under the banner of national security, their homes emptied and their fields seized. In their place came a new population, Sinhalese settlers, many of them released prisoners and ex-combatants, placed in what were effectively open prisons. The message was unmistakable. This was not agriculture. This was demographic engineering. For the Tamil community, it felt like erasure. For the Sinhalese settlers, it was a chance at land, but also a posting on the edge of a war. Nightfall, November 30th, 1984. The night began like any other, kerosene lamps flickering, children settling into sleep, guards pacing the perimeter. But just past midnight, the silence fractured. Two buses rolled through the darkness, their headlights off. Inside were roughly 50 LTTE cadres, armed with submachine guns, automatic rifles, and grenades. Their target was clear, the newly established settlements at Kent and Dollar Farms. Kent Farm. The first shots tore through the night like lightning. Attackers stormed the settlement, moving with precision. Families, women, children, elderly, were caught in the chaos. Prison guards and home guards attempted to respond, but the assault was overwhelming. Dollar Farm. Almost simultaneously, the second team struck Dollar Farm. The pattern repeated: gunfire, explosions, screams swallowed by the night. By dawn, 82 people lay dead, civilians, guards, and military personnel. It was the first large-scale massacre of Sinhalese civilians in the Civil War, and it sent shockwaves across the island. The LTTE justified the attack by claiming the farms were militarized settlements. But the brutality of the killings ignited a new and dangerous phase of ethnic polarization. A nation recoils. The massacre shattered the government's dream of creating Israeli-style fortified settlements in the region. Panic spread among Sinhalese settlers. Families fled in trucks, on tractors, even on foot, anything to escape the fear of another night like that one. Even Ravi Jayawardena, son of the president, personally traveled to the region to reassure the settlers. His words could not compete with the memory of gunfire. The state strikes back. The National Security Council responded with force and determination. A new Wali Oya Brigade headquarters rose near Kent Farm. Sinhalese villagers were armed and trained in paramilitary tactics. New towns, Janakapura and Kalyanipura, were built, named after General Janaka Pereira and his wife. The colonization project did not retreat. It expanded. Between 1988 and 1989, more than 3,364 Sinhalese families, including ex-convicts, were settled in Wali Oya. The region became one of the most militarized civilian zones in the country. Shadows behind the settlements. Behind the official narrative of development and security, darker stories circulated. Tamil women reported abductions and sexual violence at the hands of security forces and prisoners. Families displaced from their ancestral lands watched as their homes were repurposed for others. The sense of injustice deepened, feeding the cycle of grievance and retaliation. For Tamil nationalists, the LTTE attack was framed as resistance against forced displacement. For the Sinhalese community, it was a night of terror that confirmed their worst fears. Both narratives hardened. Both communities bled. A turning point in a long war. The Kent and Dollar Farm massacres were not isolated incidents. They were the product of a combustible mix: land, identity, militarization, and political ambition. They marked a moment when the conflict crossed a threshold, when civilians became deliberate targets, and when state policy and militant violence fed each other in a deadly loop. For Sinhalese survivors, the memory remains raw, a reminder of vulnerability and loss. For Tamils, the farms symbolize displacement and the machinery of state power. For Sri Lanka, the episode stands as a warning: when land becomes a battlefield for identity, justice becomes the first casualty. Truth frame reflection. The tragedy of Kent and Dollar Farms is not just in the numbers. It lies in the choices that led there, the decisions made in offices far from the fields of Manal Aru, the fears that shaped policy, and the retaliations that followed. This episode reveals a painful truth: when a state uses land to redraw identity, and when communities respond with violence, the soil itself becomes stained with memory. And memory, once wounded, does not heal easily.